Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan McNeil, and this is the Builder by Day podcast. Today, I'm having a conversation with my brother, Jamie McNeil.
Hello.
My brother from the same mother.
Brother from the same mother.
Actual brother. So today, Jamie, you and I'll just, for those listening, I normally do a little intro so they know who I'm talking to, but it's not like I'm going to ask you
personal questions.
You're like, yeah, we're not going to do it. You and I are just going to start shooting the shit. So, first of all, I will mention anybody that's watching that, I've been trying to get you on the show to come in and have a conversation with me for some time now, trying to whittle you down. So I'm glad you came here. I think when it's all said and done at the end of the day, you'll go, oh yeah, that was actually pretty good. Let's do that again sometime. I know you don't. I know you're reluctant.
Yeah, I'm reluctant. Yes.
Yeah, I know you're reluctant.
Absolutely.
It's the same stuff we talk about. It's the same thing we do every day. You just have a conversation about shit, and oddly enough, people out there want to listen to random people talk about regular nothing. Conversations.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's pretty much what I do all day is watch those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're just now one of those people.
And maybe I'll even watch one of your episodes after this.
Probably not. You'll watch this one.
Probably not.
No. Yeah, I don't think for 1 second that you've probably watched any of the episodes that I've produced. You probably watched a couple in the last couple of days just so you kind of got a feel for what you're in for.
I didn't know. I watched a couple of the clips, the short little TikTok clips or whatever you put on X. Yeah, the little 30-second pieces.
Yeah. So we do those. That's good you brought that up. So I was looking. Part of the reason I wanted to have you and have a conversation is so that I can have a conversation with regular conversation with somebody who understands.
Regular guy conversation, right?
And that's one thing I want to mention when we have, because you saw that in your feed, one of your social media feeds, when that clip came up where I was talking about HRM with that crazy bullshit they're doing it's nuts, man. That's crazy. The councillors want to get rid of X.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit their
politics.
Their what do they call them? Their municipal values.
Yeah.
Of DEI, basically, that's what they say.
It's crazy that they want to get rid of the one thing that could open their eyes up to what the rest of the world actually thinks and how they operate.
Yeah.
They want to live in their bubble.
Yes.
Can live in their bubble so they're not exposed to what actually is going on in the world and what their voters are actually thinking. They want to get rid of that thing. That's the thing they want to get rid of.
Yes. Well, of course they do.
That's crazy.
They want to get rid of it because they want to live in their bubble and they want everybody else in their bubble.
Yeah. But in this case here, though, if they were to get rid of it for government employees only, right? That's the worst case scenario, right? Because then they're limiting themselves completely to their own thought. Again, they're in their own bubble,
right?
They can't possibly limit it for us. We're free. They can't take it away from us.
What they want to do is they want to have the municipality, like HFX Gov, I think is the Twitter account, the handle. And then also it would be things like Halifax Water probably.
Exactly.
And who knows? Maybe they even want Halifax Police to stop using it.
Well, come on.
It just doesn't make, nothing about it makes any sense, of course, because it's a tremendously effective communication tool. And just like last week, they were using it to tell people about the water advisory. Remember the boil water advisory and snowstorms and all that shit?
I saw that on X.
Yeah.
That's where I get my news. Yeah.
There would be people out there who that's literally where they get their information. So then
There's
they say,
most
you
people
could just sign up for a Blue Sky account.
What? Why would I do that?
Right. I already have an X account. You already have the account set up.
Why would I go to Blue Sky?
That's what they said. That's what this one counselor said.
What purpose? The only reason people go to Blue Sky is so they can live in their left-wing bubble. That's all that is for.
That's right.
It's all it's
a safe space. It's a safe space.
Exactly. Why would I want to go there? Even if I believed and that was my team,
from the truth.
Why would I want to be over there and not expose myself to reality?
I know.
Right. But it's crazy anyway. It's a public health risk to not have it. I don't listen to the radio, local radio. I listen to, Spotify or Tidal, whatever I'm listening to. I don't watch local news. I watch clips on YouTube or I read X, right? I get 99% of my information news-wise from X, really, right? And for the reasons that we've talked about.
Yeah, and then some people go, oh my God, you get all your news from there. Oh, you're just a right-wing nut job. But first of all, that's not accurate anyway. There's all kinds of...
It's definitely not.
No, X is not like... People are under the impression that somehow X is 90%, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
Conservative or Republic or Republican.
Not left.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not accurate, man. That's just not...
It's not accurate. And I had someone send me a clip that was... I want to say CTV, but I'm not sure because honestly I didn't watch the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But basically they were saying, that's what they're saying. They're like, people on X are ultra right. It's not a balanced platform. People go on there just to troll and pick on other people, right. Which agreeably, I like to do that.
Yes, sure.
But
lots of people do.
But the fact is, X releases its metrics all the time about who the demographics are of its users. And it's pretty much 50-50. It's like, I think it's 49% right-leaning and 51 left-leaning. Still a little bit more left, but basically 50-50. But back when it was Twitter, it was 80% left views and 20% right views. Not because there was 80% of the people were on the left, but because they were censoring what was coming out. They were controlling the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Where Elon's come out and said, okay, I'm sure that he's controlling some things, of course. But for the most part, it's not censored. You're allowed to say pretty much what you want unless you're saying something super bad. And just let it go. And people correct themselves, right? The community notes or in the comments, people call you out immediately. If you say something stupid that isn't accurate, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, you're getting called out for it.
Yeah. It's, Twitter's, or X, I still say Twitter. It's
me too.
I think X is a stupid name, by the way. But anyways, one syllable name, I guess.
That's because it's kids X.
Well, so what? I don't know.
I
go around naming shit after
he's
my
a weird.
kids.
He's a weird guy.
Yeah, I know he's weird. Anyways, I'm probably always gonna say Twitter. People will say I'm a boomer or whatever for doing that. Whatever. But it's amazing to me that they would ever, like, if we go back to the HRM thing, that they would, first of all, that someone would even say that. It's to suggest.
It's crazy.
That. But then they voted in favor of it, like 13-3.
What? Really?
Yeah. So they haven't officially said, yeah, let's get rid of it. They voted 13-3 in favor of spending taxpayer money to do a case study or whatever it is.
That's a good use of money. Case studies.
About whether or not they should get rid of it. But we all know now that they voted 13-3 in favor of should we get rid of it, or a study that says should we get rid of it, then you know they're going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
They will. And then they'll say, well, we don't need that. Here, everyone, just set up a Blue Sky account or whatever they're saying is the alternative. It's just
they're doing the same thing.
And it's even worse. And it's not that, I don't like using left and right, but it's unavoidable because you can't, it's hard to describe things. But so for these lefty councillors that we have in this city, many of these people were and still continue to use their X accounts.
Right.
But many of them 2 months ago when we had, or whatever, 3-4 months ago when we had the municipal election, they were pounding it every day. That's how they were communicating to try to get votes and rally people behind them.
Yeah.
But now when it no longer, is as useful to them, they can't take advantage of it to that same extent. Now
that's the thing. It is just as useful, but it doesn't fit their narrative.
That's right.
That's the difference.
It doesn't fit the agenda.
It's probably more useful. It's probably more useful because the messages coming across on that platform are not censored.
Right.
So on the one hand, the reason why they don't like it and they like Blue Sky is because they can go out there and they can push an agenda, they can push propaganda, whatever they want, and not be checked on it. So then more people see it and say, well, this must be true because no one's checking them on it. They put it on X, they're going to get called out on it. But in the big picture, it's better for them if they do that because then they get a feel for what everyone's thinking. They can get a feel for, geez, you know what? We thought this was a great idea, but man, everybody is pounding us on this.
Right.
Everyone's saying how stupid it is. Maybe we should take a step back and maybe we should talk to some other people and figure this out. They're really hurting themselves. It's the same thing that's happening in the US with the Democrat Party right now. It's only been a month that Trump's been in office. And for the month, all they've been doing is screaming bloody murder. Right? They're destroying their party. They are not listening to anything that happened. They're not paying attention to how they lost dramatically. They lost every swing state. They're not paying attention to any of that. They're just going down the same path, beating the same drum on the same issues that if they were on X and paying attention, they would know it's not going anywhere. Right. You're leading your party down a hole you're not going to be able to recover from. Right. It's not unlike the Republicans, I don't know how many years ago, before Trump came in the first time, they were losing favor, but they switched gears a bit because of Trump, because Trump was a Democrat coming in first, right? He's a left-wing guy. He's been a Democrat his whole life. He's from New York. Of course he's a Democrat.
Sure.
Right? He comes in to become the head of the Republican Party, right? The first time around. And he comes in with completely different views than Republicans are used to, which is why all the old rhinos don't like him. He comes in and all of a sudden the Republican Party, if you take a look at the Republican Party today and what they're after, not so much mass deportation, things like that, but for most of the stuff that he's after, it's very much in line with what Obama had been saying when he was in office.
Yeah, you can see clips where they're
saying exactly the same thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Even with deportations and immigration, Obama was saying exactly the same things.
And government overspending and holding government accountable and all that shit. I've seen videos of Obama saying that.
Obama said it. Al Gore was going on about it back in those days. Exactly the same words. They're saying exactly the same thing, except that they didn't do
50 years ago, like, whatever, 10 years ago, whenever Obama was the guy, whatever that was.
Whatever it was.
Who cares? Yeah, but it's interesting you say that because when you talk about how the counselors... Yeah, it's not to their advantage not to use it. Because it gives you a gauge of where you stand in the sanity spectrum.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And back to what I started saying a few minutes ago with those little short clips that we do, sometimes it's a short clip that Brendan will cut from, a longer clip like this.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll actually sit down, I'll put some thought into what I want to say, write it out.
Rant.
We throw it on the teleprompter, and I'll read it out because it's like you got to get it in a minute and a half. So if you're not concise about it and articulate about it, then it's just you're not going to get it across. So we've done a few of those, and on one hand, I hate doing them because I'm not interested in being.
You don't want to read a script.
Yeah, but you have to. But there's no way around that. You have to. You just can't squeeze it into a minute and a half. If you're going to just freewheel it. Right?
Exactly.
Unless I memorized it, but I don't have time to memorize a minute speech anytime you want to do it. But what's interesting is those clips also work from a podcast perspective. Those clips work as, like marketing.
Yeah.
Or you're promoting your channel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And they get.
Well, yeah, you're not going to post your whole podcast on X and expect everybody to watch it, right? You post
X is almost. We don't get any traction at this point. We don't get any traction on X.
No.
X is also, in fairness, it's probably the last social media platform that I really even like putting any videos of myself on because I know all these dickheads on there are just ready to. These anonymous. 90% of the people on X are anonymous.
Yeah.
And they're all a bunch of angry assholes on both sides.
Right? Oh yeah, I fall in that category.
Yeah, so I'm just waiting for it. And so far, thus far, it's been pretty good. I don't think we've had anyone really kind of take a run at us.
Yeah.
But then I've had I've noticed my clips get grabbed by some other X users. Like on X, I have no followers. I don't really have an X presence. Right? I don't engage much. I've probably made a few hundred posts.
Yeah.
Ever. And like many people, oftentimes I'll post something and then I'll be like, and I'll delete it. Right?
Yeah.
I'll post something and I'm like, it wasn't very nice. I'll delete it.
It wasn't very nice.
Well, not even so much, not very nice, but it's kind of like, I don't need to say it. 15 other people already said it.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? So I get it.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I never, I don't want to say never, but rarely ever, I'd have to go with my feed to find an example. I don't make comments to individuals. So if some guy is posting something that kind of comes in my feed, I don't go at people like that.
Yeah.
But I'll go at CBC News or CTV because that's totally different.
Right. And they're easy pickings.
Oh my God, man. The material, it's just I actually think that they must do that purposely to
get
engagement.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe.
Because some of the stuff they say is so.
The CTV News account is the worst for that.
CTV. Yeah.
I found over the last couple of years, CTV News, not so much in the last 6 months maybe, but for the year or so before that, I would wager more than half of their posts, no matter what the subject was, would always end with because of climate change.
Oh yeah.
Every time, no matter what it was.
I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
No matter what the topic was, it would always include because of climate change.
Yeah, you're right.
No matter what. And I would always respond with because of climate change. If it didn't say that, I'd respond with that.
That's right.
Right? Because that's what they do. They're setting themselves up every time.
Yeah, well, they just have they've been given these talking points, right? So however that works, the editors, whoever it is squeeze these talking points in whenever you can.
Yeah.
Right? Anywhere.
But we figured out with this Doge piece on USAID, right? Where they found all this money coming from the government to USAID and then going back to the government or going to media. Some of what they found, and I don't know the exact numbers, but millions of dollars were going to each of these media outlets. All this mainstream media were getting paid by USAID, which is essentially being paid by the government. Right. So the government, same as here, but here it's direct, right? The Liberals or the government is paying CBC directly. So of course they're going to say whatever is going to help who's paying them. In the US, it's the same thing, except they go through intermediaries, NGOs, and USAID. But it explains why when something happens, all of the networks have the exact same talking point, not just the same perspective, They're using the exact same words, right? And it's
Threat to our democracy. Remember that video?
threat to our democracy.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Remember
right?
they said that for
Last week it was constitutional crisis.
right.
That's what it was last
Right.
week. Everybody was saying it. Every single person on every mainstream media said the exact same words. And it used to be a point in time where we're like, are they all just watching each other and picking up and thinking, hey, that sounds pretty catchy, let's just use that? That's not what's happening.
No.
They're all being directed to do it from whoever's controlling that money that's coming in through USAID, right?
Yeah, they're talking points. Yeah.
They're being told this is what you say.
Simultaneously. They're not watching each other.
It's not organic.
No.
No. And you don't, and every week it's a different thing. That last week, constitutional crisis. The week before that was unelected billionaires. Unelected billionaires. Oh man, watch out.
That doesn't matter in Canada though.
Doesn't matter in Canada. It didn't matter when Soros was doing it for 2 decades.
The Liberal Party is going to put one of those guys in charge.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, all the old people in the country are going to vote for this guy, this unelected billionaire.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I'm willing to bet that they're reading CTV or CTV News when they're referring to Elon Musk and they're getting all worked up.
100%.
Right?
100%.
The hypocrisy it's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Unbelievable.
It's great. I wish I was doing a PhD right now in something involving this, because you could do a
You
thesis.
can get a PhD in anything these days, man.
Well, you can, but to do a real one, to do it on what's going to happen here in this election. If you did it on from, the fall of Trudeau, so when he resigned, or said he was going to resign, to when Carney gets placed in, which he's going to whenever the election happens, which is probably going to be pushed out because of emergency powers.
As far away as possible.
As far as possible, right? If you do a study on all this and how this broke down and how the media portrays the whole thing, it would be fascinating a couple of years from now to go back and read and see how this happens. Because like you said, Carney comes in, not elected, never elected for anything, doesn't live in the country, hasn't lived in the country in years.
10 years.
Yeah. He has homes around the world.
Right.
Billionaire. I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's very
refer
wealthy.
to him as.
So he's a billionaire. Yeah. He comes on a couple of friendly channels and admits openly he's a globalist.
Right.
That's what we're trying to get away from.
A globalist elitist.
A globalist elitist. He admits that he says that's what Canada needs.
That's right.
But that's what Trudeau's been trying to push for years.
That's right.
From the WEF, right?
Right.
So what makes you think that's what we need if the whole country rejected that whole premise? And now you're coming in saying we need it. And CBC and the media on that side, they're backing him up.
Yeah. But of course, he doesn't think that's what we need. That's what he wants.
Of course. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This guy is like, it's unbelievable to me, man. It's unbelievable how you could just see this coming. Every time there was a talk about, even before this whole Trudeau resigning, government prorogued nonsense, like even in like the past year or so, anytime there was the talk of an election, Mark Carney's name came up. It's like everyone was just waiting for, at some point, they're going to insert him.
Yeah.
And this was their point. And you can see it's like, and it's not even, what pisses me off the most is that it's not even clever. It's not even clever strategy. It's just blatantly obvious idiot strategy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, obviously that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
We all know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You've already started doing it. So Trudeau does his thing where, Parliament is shut down for the summer. Then they come back and they're fighting and arguing over this green slush fund thing for however many months. They can't get anything done.
Yeah.
Then Trudeau pulls his resignation stunt. And then he goes, we're going to prorogue government. So it's been like, we've had no government for like 7 months.
Yeah, that's
in
crazy.
This country. No active parliament for 7 months.
Kind of makes you easy pickings for another country to take you over and make you their 51st state.
Yeah.
You have no government. Who's going to defend you? Who's going to negotiate that deal? And who's negotiating the deal now? Who's negotiating things now? Every time I see that the Canadians are sending politicians to Mar-a-Lago to talk with Trump, it's always, well, first of all, it could be Premier of Alberta, for example. Mm-hmm. She goes down there and they're on the same page, more or less. They get along, right? Seems like it's a pretty good relationship. First of all, if you ever watch Trump, you should know better than to try to piss him off, right?
Yeah,
for better or worse.
Get that. Yeah.
A, he's got the power.
Right.
You know he's got an ego. You know he doesn't like to be pushed like that. So to go at him the way that Trudeau or whoever else is doing that, you're asking for it. You're asking for it. It doesn't make you look cool.
No.
It doesn't make you look tough because you're going to get smacked. You're going to lose. You're going to lose.
That's what's going to happen.
Right?
Yes.
So and at this point, you can't send Carney down there. He's not elected for anything. He can't talk about it. He can't do it. Trudeau can't because
Trump's not going to like Carney, by the way.
100%. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even talk to him. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even allow him to come and talk to him.
He's not going to like him.
No.
No way.
No.
It's just like business 101, relationship building and maintaining 101. It's like you have to be able to understand who you're dealing with on the other end
Yeah.
Recognize who you're dealing with on the other end, and know your fucking role.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's ways to deal with people who are that type of personality, but it's not by talking shit.
No.
That's not going to get you anywhere. And then we have we're in this scenario for the past 10 years and now you see it like front and center because they'll turn the camera on and interview one of these ministers of whatever for Canada, who's just some airhead that has no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And when they open their mouth and start talking, you're like, why do we have such losers talking for us, right?
Yeah.
How did we get to a place where these fucking losers are speaking on behalf of us?
Yeah.
These idiots who nobody would ever hire.
Every country has that, though. The United States has it, too. You get AOC running out there.
Well,
you get
perfect
Maxine
example.
Waters talking about.
Yeah, perfect example.
Come on.
I couldn't, I was trying to think of that. I was trying to think of a good example. She's the one.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it happens everywhere. I mean, obviously they live in a district, they represent a district who happens to feel the same way or just isn't very educated, whatever it is, right? To maintain their spot. But the party shouldn't be backing them going out and speaking in the ways they speak. So the people you're talking about here in Canada are going out and talking shit. I mean, I don't even know who they are, right? But same thing. I see them, they go out just like minister of this or premier of that, not premier, but minister of this or that. And they're basically attacking Trump and the US over what's going on, right? First of all, I have no idea who you are, buddy, right? You don't represent me.
No, attacking him and like just this talking shit thing. Like, oh yeah, we're going to, we're going to hit him back and we're going to, even Carney said in that clip, remember we saw that clip, I think I sent it or you sent it, one of us, I know we've both seen it, where he says, he's standing around talking to 12 old people in a room and he's talking about how he's going to get things done, even if that means using emergency powers. He says emergency powers.
Yeah.
And then he says, we're going to do what we need to do to something like, he uses the terminology like take on the Americans.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody here wants to take on the Americans. What
they're
is
not
this?
our adversary.
Yeah, what is this shit? What is this mentality of taking them on?
Yeah.
It's mental, man.
Well, I assume the reason that they're doing it is because they know they're in a tough spot politically, that they're not going to win the next election, or you wouldn't think. But the way to get support would be to create a new enemy. So right now they're the enemy, right, for the Canadian people, because we've seen what's been happening and the majority of people want them out, right? But so they're creating a new enemy, which is the US. So now trying to galvanize all Canadians, rah, Canada, which we should be anyway, which we are. But
some of us always were.
Yeah, some of us always were.
But a few years ago, if you were like that, you were a fucking right-wing nut job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. You're a nationalist.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You can't say, they can't be proud of Canada.
That's right. You were a nationalist. And now it's let's all wrap a flag around each other and boo the national anthem, the U.S. national anthem.
Exactly.
That's not how that works.
No, it's not how it works. But that's what they're after. They're trying to split. It's always about division. They're always trying to divide. Exactly. In this case, they're trying to divide us against the Americans.
Right.
Which is better than dividing us against each other, I suppose, but it's not going to get us anywhere.
Well, they don't. Yeah, but they haven't stopped dividing us against each other either.
No, they haven't stopped.
Right. They'll continue to do that. That's the only way they can pull anything off, is for the country to be divided.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I was saying earlier, like if I meant to mention with these little clips that we do that we pound around, I interrupted myself again. But you had mentioned with the counselors or anyone using X, it is to their advantage because then they can gauge public opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And you'll never get a bigger sample size than that.
No.
Right? You'll never get a bigger sample size than social media.
Exactly.
And so when I do those little clips that Brendan and I put together, the little short ones that, like we've had, we have a handful of followers just getting going here. And, these YouTube things work like, if things go well, they kind of work like that. Could be years before anything really happens.
Yeah.
And then we'll post one of these things out and it'll get like we've got a couple of clips that have done quite well. Like one of them's like 50,000 views, which is completely out of proportion
to the rest,
for the few hundred views that we would get on a clip like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get like days worth of watch hours on that clip versus 20 hours of watch hours on a clip.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's impactful and it's good for promotion and that kind of stuff. But also the main reason I do it is because I then gauge, okay, but what are people, how's this message
Yeah, exactly.
received, right?
Yeah.
Because if I post something and the majority of people jump down my throat over it, then I go, okay, well, maybe I got my wires crossed here. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought what I was saying was representative of the majority of people.
Yeah.
Now that hasn't happened yet because it's overwhelmingly supportive. And I know some people, critics would say, oh, that's just because you're in your own echo chamber. And what I would say to that is, that's not accurate because these first things that I first started posting, we have no echo chamber.
Right.
The first clip that I ever posted in short form like that Brendan put together, we had like 6 followers.
Right.
So there was no echo chamber. It just created itself. And again, echo chambers will, obviously that's how it works. People follow folks that like them. But we get some, we post some things. We get a few people that are like Carney for PM.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What people don't realize, the trolling types or the confrontational types, I guess, is that what I would say to the people who watch any of my clips or YouTube channel stuff, of course, very much appreciative of comments, positive comments. Okay, man, it's a great episode. Like we're saying, fucking right on, brother, whatever, right? Because it lets me know that, okay, I'm not just out here in the wind. Like maybe, because you like to think that, I would like to think that my opinions, when I voice them, are representative of, I do believe that our opinions are representative
of the majority of people. 100%.
I definitely believe that. And so if I ever feel like, geez, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe that's not the case. Then
that's
I would
the way to
probably
gauge
revisit my strategy, and I'd probably say, okay, well, maybe I have to dial it back or cast a wider net or whatever I got to do here.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot, but we're not there. So we're going to keep doing it. But
that's the platform for it. Like you say, I mean, they're shooting themselves in the foot by not having that because they're not getting the feedback that's going to lead them down the path of correctness, let's say, right? Correctness. I work in the tech space, as you know, so when we do release new products or new versions or whatever you're doing,
right,
you often do what's called an A/B test, right? So you send out one version A and another version B. You test the market and see which one works the best, and then you go with that.
Right.
It's a similar idea, right? You should be able to put out your ideas on a platform like X, which has 50-50 representation from the left and the right, for example, and you'll get the feedback, and you'll know right away, geez, man, I'm really getting hammered by the left and the right on this piece, right? I'm really way off. Or in this case, if it was a political party and they really want their own team to be rah-rah behind them, but they also want to pick up some people on the other team, right? This is the way to do it.
Sure.
If you just keep pushing it out, like if you're a company and you keep doing your A/B test, but you only give it to your customers, the people who are already buying from you,
right,
you're not getting a good feedback.
Yeah.
You need to give it out to your own customers, but give it to other people too who don't use you yet. And that's how you're going to get your feedback. That's how you build new customer base, right? You find out, okay, well, yeah, all my customers here, 90% of them agree with what we just pushed here. It must be great. So look over here, these 100 people who aren't our customers, 95% of them said they hated it. And this is the reason why. Well, okay, let's adjust and change our course a bit here, right? You don't have to change your whole values and your whole view, politically I'm talking now. You don't have to change your whole views from your liberal politics and all of a sudden be conservative on issues, right? But you need to figure out if you're way offline with the majority of people. Part of the problem with politics is that you get into ideology.
Right. And
so when you get into ideology, you don't care if the majority of people don't agree with you, right? If it's something like DEI, for example, 95% of the people may disagree with it. But if you're invested in that ideology, you don't give a shit what other people think, right? You are pushing it. And you view at that point with ideology, your role now is to push the ideology. You want to convince other people that you are right and they are wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you want. And in order to be able to fuel yourself and your people around you to give you the rah, we're on the right team, you have to keep doing that to your own people. You have to keep getting feedback from the people in your group so you feel validated. You feel like, man, we're really on the right path there because I put out this video and 1,000 people from the NDP party said how great I am.
Right. Yeah,
okay, yeah, but everybody from the Conservative Party said you're idiots.
Right.
So maybe change that approach a little bit, right? But if they're only on whatever it's called, blue screen or whatever the stupid app is called, if they're only on that
blue
app,
sky, right? Blue
I don't
sky,
know.
yeah.
But if they're on that app, they're not getting that feedback, right? They're not getting that feedback. They're going to get all, wow, you guys are great. You're really knocking it out of the park. Come on.
It's that's weird.
The fact that you picked up your ball and went home from X in the first place, I mean, come on, you're pretty fragile.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get off your ass. Get out there. Who cares if someone calls you names or doesn't agree with you? Great. It's no fun anyway. If I was on X and everything I say, everyone agreed with, what's the fun in that? What's the purpose? I like to argue with somebody about something, right? Same as we do in our own group chat. Our own group chat with our own family and close friends. We get on there and we will fight with each other.
Sometimes we'll say shit because we know it's going to start a fight.
Most times that's what happens. I know you do it.
Yeah.
But there's most times we'll do that. We'll post something, we'll post a clip from something, and I know for certain if I post a certain type of clip, somebody on our chat's going to respond negatively.
Yeah,
and I'm just laughing in the background because I know it's coming.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the best. But that's what it's for. I mean, I find with X anyway, not to talk exclusively about X here, but with that platform, what's so great about that is that it does allow for real use for news and for information sharing and understanding what's really going on. But it's also a fun place to get on there and just have fun. Just to get on there and troll somebody. Just to get on there and respond.
Likes doing that.
Not everyone does, but for people who do, like me, it's great, right? You can get on there and you can have fun with it. And people, I mean, some people don't understand it and they take you seriously and think you're a jerk, right? Of course. But most of the time people understand what you're doing, right? And there's some fun in that. So that's what attracts me to X the most. Those two things together, because I'm getting both pieces that I'm looking for on social media. I'm getting some fun, but I'm also getting the information that I want to get. I'm getting information that I might not agree with, but I'm getting that information. And I know that, I can get information there that I can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like for US, for example, there's information I get on X that I can't get from Fox News or I can't get from CNN. I just can't get it because neither one of them will cover certain things in a certain way. But you get someone like the one we shared this morning. And again, I don't remember his name, the CEO of whatever company that was, but the way he's ranting going on and his brain is going 1,000 miles an hour, of course, and he's going all over the place. But the stuff he's saying, I'm like, geez, that makes a lot of sense. But you'd never hear that from any of the other networks because he's going on both sides of the aisle. He's saying things that are way over here on the left and then way over here on the right, but they all make sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think people don't get is that I can view, even though I tend to lean more to the right, let's call it, right of what today's center is, not what 20 years ago center was.
No.
Today's center, I fall a little bit to the right of that. But there's definitely things from people on the left that I can listen to and makes perfect sense.
Right.
And I can't argue, or I could argue, but you agree that, okay, you're making a valid point here. I should consider that. I should listen to what you're saying, absorb it, change my view maybe, or improve my argument based on what you're telling me.
Right.
But if I'm only on Blue Sky, I'm never getting that opportunity. I'm never going to know. Then when you come across somebody, if you're out to dinner or you're meeting friends or wherever you're at and you start having a conversation with different people of different views, you're caught off. You have no idea how to respond because you've never heard the argument.
Yeah.
Right? If I keep saying the argument, I don't know, William Nylander is the best hockey player in the world, right? He's one of the best for sure, for the record.
Yeah.
One of the best. He's second in goal scoring in the whole league. He could win the Rocket. Yeah. He could be our best player. He could be our best player. Anyway, if I get on that path, but I only talk to people who agree with me, and then I go out and I talk to some Montreal Canadiens fan like this guy over here, right? He'll say some stupid shit that doesn't make sense anyway. Yeah, that's right. But I'm not going to have any idea how to come back and respond to him because I live in a bubble. I live in a Leafs bubble. I don't have any idea who's in the Montreal Canadiens pipeline. I don't know what draft picks they got. I'm
glad you brought that up because I've always, I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but in our group chat normally. But what's interesting about when it comes to like, not even just political, but even just cultural issues at hand that people might be arguing about in today's society. And you'll get people on the, again, left and right or side of the argument. It's interesting that if it was hockey or football or NASCAR or some shit like that, then if you weren't a hockey or football or NASCAR fan and you never listened to anyone who knows what they're talking about, like all the talking heads who analyze it and all the sports talk radio and whatever, if you never listened to any of that and you didn't really even pay any attention to that sport, then you would never start arguing with somebody about it who spends all day paying attention to football and so if a debate comes up about who the best college football coach is of all time, I wouldn't chime in on that. I don't fucking know who that is.
No.
But when it comes to politics and culture, everybody's an expert, even though they have no idea what they're talking about. They've never listened to any actual experts speak about the topic of climate change or whatever it might be. Everyone's an expert. Everyone's going to chime in.
Exactly.
Like as if they have some knowledge of the subject.
Right.
Right?
Well, that comes back to the point I was saying about how different networks and media gets their talking points, right? It's the age-old tactic of repeating, right? You repeat something enough, it becomes factual,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So they repeat the same talking point over and over from every network, and you are hearing it. You repeat, and then you start repeating. You, I guarantee you, if you go to dinner, say you go to the Bicycle Thief tomorrow, or you go to El Mercado or someplace like that, you're sitting around listening to people talk. I guarantee you're going to hear some people say unelected billionaire. You're going to hear someone say constitutional crisis. You're going to hear that because that's all they hear.
Threat to our democracy.
Threat to our democracy. Yeah. And they're going to think they're right? They're going to be empowered that everybody in the news is saying this, so it's got to be right. So now I'm going to say it. I'm going to sound smart because that's what they're saying too, right? Meanwhile, like you say, someone who actually knows what they're talking about will chime in and say, hey, bud, I just heard you say constitutional crisis. What do you mean by that? Like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't have that.
It's terrible, man. It's terrible that we're laughing, but it's frightening, really, when you think about it. How just uninformed people are, or misinformed they are, because they rely on, especially the generation that's still relying on legacy media and exclusively legacy media. Because I'll actually put a little effort into now and then flipping on I still have cable, right? So I'll flip on CBC News or CTV or whatever, just to hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I always think the same. I'll even say to Amy, I'm like, Amy, just think there are people that this is the only news they get. Yeah. This is the only interpretation of the situation that they hear. Yeah. So no fucking wonder they're brainwashed into thinking this is the truth, and the truth's really over here, right? Yeah. If that's all they rely upon, well, where else would they get the information?
We talked to Mom about that, and she's of that generation, right? Turning 70 next month. She would be in the same boat as them if it wasn't for us, constantly talking to her and talking about the topics at hand and what's happening, right? Apparently, she just opened an X account for the first time, so she's now getting her news through X. Now she's coming on, she's learning things, right? But it took probably the last year or so for her to come on and start to really speak factually about what's actually going on, right? Where before that, it was very much just CBC talking points over and over again.
We had a conversation the other day with somebody who gets their news from, legacy media and so on, who is in that age group, who we said something about, obviously the topic of Trump comes up, and then I can't remember how the conversation evolved, but at some point somebody said something, and then I said, well, yeah, but they tried to kill him. Yeah. Twice. Right? Yeah. Twice that we know of. Yeah. So yeah, he probably has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I mean, I would. Probably. Right? And then this person said, oh, but he didn't really get shot. It was like a piece of plexiglass or something. I'm like, well, come on, what? And
doesn't matter.
And this is a person that I care about. Yeah. So I'm like, where did you hear that? Yeah. Where did you come up with that? And then I at that point went on to say, you know that you realize that the person sitting behind him, somebody lost their life. There was a guy that got shot. Yeah. Protecting his family from bullets. Yeah. She didn't know that. Right. And then because
Carpenter is his name, right?
Yeah. And then I also said, and then this person said, but they're like, but how would a trained assassin miss the shot from that close? I'm like, it wasn't a trained assassin. Yeah. It was some kid.
It wasn't some dirty Russian sniper who came over here.
It was some delusional kid that they coerced into doing it.
100%.
They coerced him into what he tried to do was a murder-suicide, because there was no way he was getting out of that alive.
No.
I don't even know. Did this kid just commit to the fact that he was going to die? Because, I mean, if he had...
They probably lied to him. They probably deluded him, saying, we got your back, we'll get you out of there.
Yeah,
whoever
I guess,
it was.
I guess.
Whoever was behind it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't... No logical person could think their way through that and say, I'm getting out of here.
No.
Anyway. But my point is that this person who, if we sat down and wrote down all of what we value and believe in, 99% of that would be the same.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't actually differ in our values, in our outlook on the world. No, we don't differ at all. But we're getting different information. Well, in this person's case, they're not getting any of the information, relevant information, right? And it's troubling to see that, because you think, well, there's somebody right there in my life as a perfect example. So multiply that by however many millions of people are in that same situation. And it's not because we fundamentally disagree on anything. We're just operating on two different levels of information.
Yeah, and that argument about the plexiglass comes up once in a while. But where do you think the plexiglass came from? Let's just say, for argument's sake, it was plexiglass that hit his ear.
Sure.
Did it just spontaneously explode and hit his ear?
Yeah, yeah.
Or was it because the guy shot a bullet and hit the plexiglass, which deflected and hit his ear?
sure.
Who cares?
Sure.
If it was the bullet or the plexiglass, it happened because someone tried to kill him.
That's right.
Right? So that argument doesn't stand anyway. So people making that argument, even if they believe it, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, no. Of course, none of that makes sense.
It doesn't make sense to us.
It's not a logical argument.
Makes sense to them.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense to them because that's how it's been portrayed to them, right? They've been told that.
Yeah.
From a source of news that they trust. Like here, when we talk about the CBC, and Poilievre has stated several times, and he's doubled down on this. I've heard him say it like in interviews where he plans to defund the CBC, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Whatever that means in the long run. And on one hand, I 100% agree that has to happen because it's out of hand. Yeah. And I think the media is even more than the corrupt politicians and the foreign interference and all that shit that's really happening. The media is enabling it. Like it's the media that is more complicit. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So yes, that has to happen. But there's also a part of me that's bummed out by that, man, because we grew up watching the CBC. Yeah. It was one of the 2 friggin' channels on the television.
Yeah, exactly.
So part of me is like, oh man, that's Beachcombers and Littlest Hobo and all that shit, right?
Yeah.
Fraggle Rock and all that stuff. That's CBC.
Yeah.
So part of me is like, man, so part of me actually then, it actually just makes me even more angry about the situation. I'm like, you fuckers.
Yeah.
Not only did you screw us, but you ruined something that was good, man.
Yeah, that's right.
You ruined something that was good for the whole country. And you guys, fuck you, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Pisses me off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It is. But at the same time,
was it always that way? We just didn't know better. Was it always, it was always paid for by the government, but we had different governments. We had conservative governments and liberal governments. So did CBC change its views based on who was in government, or was it always one direction? Or
it may have always been. It could be like anything. It could be the curve, right? It could have always been trickling that way, but then recently it took off to the point now where it's nonsensical. It's not even.
It's got to the point where some news sources, CBC being one, CTV News another one, in the States, MSNBC for sure, CNN a little less so since the election. They've brought in a few people. Scott Jennings, for example, the conservative guy, he's great.
I have seen a few
I don't know how much he's paid, but he needs to be paid more.
There's another woman that comes on, I've seen on CBC rather, when they're having some political conversation. She's a brunette, pretty sharp, man. I can't think of her name. It'll come to me. I'll have to look it up. But I don't know if she necessarily identifies as conservative. I don't think that's the thing, but she's a logical voice in the room. And I like her, man. She's sharp. I can't think of her name.
That's really all we're looking for, is someone who's logical, factual, and honest. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on.
Puts up a logical debate.
But if you give me straight facts, logic, that's all I'm asking for.
Yes.
Even if I disagree with everything you're saying, if it's a logical, factual argument, bring it on. Then I'll listen. You might change my mind completely.
That's right.
If you give me something that's factual. The problem is with a lot of these networks like MSNBC or CBC, you everything they say, everything you hear them say, I immediately assume the opposite is true, right? To some extent, not completely the opposite, but I always have to assume they're not giving me the full story on this. Okay, what they're saying, it's like the very fine people hoax, right? With Trump. Right. That went on for years, even up till the debate. Obama said it again, Biden said it again. They all said it again, even though it's been debunked for years, right? But that type of thing, if you take that as an example, the media presented that as being one thing, which was not factual, right? But the clip they used obviously was factual. It was his voice. It was him saying what he was saying. But because they twist it a certain way and they present it in a without context, you were getting the complete opposite of what he was saying. The complete opposite.
Yes.
He said word for word, not these Nazi jerks over here. Right. I condemn those guys.
That's right.
That's the words he said right after he said very fine people.
That's right.
The very next sentence. Right? And they cut that out. And for years, people believe it. People still believe that today.
Yes.
Today, people still believe that's what he said. Right? But that's a real obvious example because it's been debunked so obviously. But no matter what you're watching, if you're from any of those news, and it goes for everybody, it could be Fox News or any other channel as well. When they're giving you some information, at this point, if you're interested in the truth, you have to assume what they're telling you is at best 50% true. At best, it's 50% accurate.
Right.
And there's 50% bullshit. Right, which is just them skewing it to their narrative. Fox will skew it to be positive for Trump or the conservatives. CNN and MSNBC will skew it to be more anti-Trump, basically. They're not even pro anything. There's anti-Trump, right? Yeah. That's basically what it is. You have to be able, but people have to be able to get through that. And you never will even understand that if you're only getting your news from single sources like CBC. You'll never understand that even is something you should be alerted to.
And the other thing too that I find is, everyone's even the boomers, picking on the boomers here today.
Even
man,
the
but
boomers,
like, I love the boomers, man. But my message to the boomers is like, listen, remember like 40 years ago when your kids were like 5, 6 years old? Mm-hmm. Okay. Remember in the 80s? Remember the 80s boomers? Hear me out for a second. Remember in the 80s when you used to open the door and tell your kids, have fun, be home for supper? Yeah. And then you had no fucking idea where they were all day.
For 15 hours.
Yeah. And they were like out running around the neighborhood drinking out of garden hoses when they got thirsty, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But you had faith in your kids, right? You had faith that they were street smart enough and they were resilient enough and they listened to what you had told them about not getting into vans and shit.
Yeah.
Right? So every night, supper time would roll around and sure enough, your kids would roll home.
Yep.
And you'd say, they'd come inside and you'd go, did you put your bike away? Right? That's all you concerned. It wasn't where were you all day and what were you up to? Did you put your bike away?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to the boomers now is, listen, you had faith in us in the 80s and maybe even 90s, or however that works, 70s, 80s, whatever that decades are. You had faith in us then. So you need to have some faith in your kids now because the Gen Xers have this figured out.
Yeah.
It's the boomers who are in this country who are going to vote liberal. Because even the young kids now, there's like, I've seen a number of things on
Gen
X
Z,
recently.
they're not voting liberal.
No, they're like, they may end up being the most conservative generation by the time this is all said and done. So right now it's the boomer generation that is enabling this craziness.
Yeah.
Just because they refuse to inform themselves.
Yeah, it's the lack of information.
Yeah.
They're getting their information from the same single source.
If
that's
nothing
leading
else,
them down the wrong
just
path.
give your kids the benefit of the doubt. Let your kids send you links to some Twitter posts or whatever it is. Say, listen, Mom, check this out. Just hear it out.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing more of that. But I've tried that with a few people even in our circle, and they just, it's like, nah, they don't hear it. They don't hear it.
Yeah.
Be like, listen, you should really watch this interview with this dude. I don't want to hear that.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I've sent links to, it could be anyways, somebody,
send a link to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And then someone will say, "Well, that's that guy. He's super conservative."
Yeah,
I saw somebody on CBC talking about him saying how conservative he is, and he's a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about? Did you ever listen to him? Did you hear what he said?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And anyway, I just, it's not like, man, come on. I love the boomers. That's our parents. That's our, but these guys, it's like, come on. We need you guys to get with it on this one.
Need to get with it, but I think it's incumbent on us too. Like with our own mother, where now she's on X and now she's getting her news from multiple sources, right? We educated her. That's where you're at. You've got to educate that generation. Our generation, Gen X or anybody below us, needs to educate these boomers in a way. Just you're not going to educate them like believe what I believe or do what I do. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, or say we're smarter than you. It's like that's not what it is.
You're getting your news from this one source.
That's right.
Right, and it's only giving you one viewpoint always, 100% of the time. Right, and lots of times it's not factual.
Right.
You need to look over here and look over here and then make your own decisions. I'm not telling you how to think. I'm not telling you how to agree with me. I'm just telling you, listen to these couple of sources.
Where to find the information.
Right? Listen to this guy. Listen to Jordan Peterson over here. I understand you were told he was a Nazi, but let's just assume for a second he's not.
That's right.
And listen to what he has to say. Listen to this one video here, right?
Right.
Or listen to Pierre Poilievre. You were told that he's a Nazi.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody on the right's a Nazi.
Yeah.
You were told he's a Nazi. So, but you know what? Listen to what he's actually saying here. Did he actually say anything that sounds Nazi-ish? Or did he just tell that CBC reporter to shut up because she's an idiot?
Not only that, did he say anything that you honestly don't agree with? Can you pick anything out of that you don't agree with? Yeah. Pretend whoever it is you're voting for said it.
Yeah.
Do you look at
pretend nobody's looking. Pretend no one's judging you.
That's right.
Do you agree with what he said?
These things that this person said, what part of that don't you agree with? Well, there's nothing I really don't agree with. I just think he's a right-wing nut job.
Exactly.
Based on what?
Yeah.
You're ignoring what he said and you're going with what? Somebody told you to think about him?
Exactly.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah. That's the same thing's happened, obviously, with Trump down in the States.
Well, Trump would be the most extreme example.
Most extreme example, but the majority, let's over 50%, majority of people, his approval rating is over 50%. It's like 53 or something like that, which is the highest he's ever had.
Right.
But his approval rating on doing what he said he would do is like 90%. Mm-hmm. The whole country agrees he's doing what he said he would do. That's amazing. A politician doing what he said he would do.
That's right.
Right? The politician doing what he said he would do, and the majority of the country voted for him to do it. So if you're now on the opposite side, which is, there's always an opposite side, if you're on the opposite side and you're complaining about it, you can complain about it, but understand the majority of your peers agree with what he's doing and what he said he was going to do. They voted for him. They're agreeing with what he's doing now, right? So,
and not only that, if you look at something that he's doing, pick anything, pick the USAID thing, pick the DEI stuff, pick something. Like you could pick a very finite example, or you could pick a broad strokes example, and then to ask that person, okay, so forget about what the media is saying about it. What don't you like about that?
Right.
What part of that do you have a problem with? Do you think the government should be funneling billions of dollars of our taxpayer money through these NGOs and back into their own pockets?
Yeah. They teach a tribe in Angola about queer sex changes and drag shows for school children.
That's right. Or
that's important. That's where
a campaign in some other country where they're trying to get people to stop shitting on the beach or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
What is this, man? This is insane. What are we talking about here?
The stuff they're uncovering, it's unbelievable. The stuff that they're uncovering, and Trump went on yesterday, I think, 20 minutes or something, he went on and just read a list of stuff. We're sending $400 million for this. We're spending $40 million for this. And the stuff they're sending the money to is just crazy. It's insane. And as crazy as it is, the things that they're sending the money to, for sure 90% of that money is never going there to do it anyway. It's always coming back through and it's paying off whoever's paying off. The same thing where Zelensky admitted 50% of the $200 billion they got from the United States, they can't account for.
Yeah.
$100 billion you can't account for?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with these. I'm having crazy deja vu right now, man. Like crazy deja vu. When you have deja vu sometimes that was like a 2-minute deja vu there.
Well, we
didn't have this conversation.
You're switching realities.
Whew. Yeah, I must be like something going on with the Matrix there.
Yeah, exactly.
1 foot on either side. Oh, that was weird, man.
Make sure you land on the right one.
I haven't had deja vu in a long time.
No?
But that was significant. I was thinking, did we talk about this already? Did we talk about this? No. What you just said there? What did you just say there?
I don't know. I forgot.
Back to reality now. Fuck. I forget what you said there. I was so taken by it. I was like, man, this is crazy deja vu right now.
Well, I was talking about how Zelensky admitted that they lost $100 billion.
Oh, yes. And that's the thing with these non-government organizations. Yeah. There's no tracking the money. It just goes to that organization and poof. We're doing the same thing in this country. We're talking about the U.S., but it's happening here.
Yeah, of course.
Global
the only reason we're talking about the United States because it's being exposed and we have examples, right? The same thing's happening here. It's probably just as bad or worse.
Well, remember last week when all that was going on with USAID, and then on that day, the Global Affairs Canada website went down or something?
Yeah, that was scrubbed everything.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, that was just a coincidence. So
it wasn't that was a coincidence, yeah.
Yeah, can you name one other time when that site's been down the last 10 years?
Yeah, the site had a list of 400 things to spend money on and went down. Now it has 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
It's crazy, man.
But those NGOs overall, it's what's happening now with Doge and Elon coming in there. Take aside whatever you believe about those guys. The fact that they're exposing these things and explaining it to people, explaining what an NGO is, right? You hear NGOs all the time.
Supporting numbers and documentation.
Yeah. Explaining that all an NGO is, it says non-government organization.
That's right.
It's like most things in government. What the title is the opposite of what it is.
Yeah.
Right? It is funded 100% by the government.
Yeah.
And does things the government wants it to do.
Right.
But avoids government oversight.
Right.
So it's just the dark government. That's all. Right. That's all they are.
That's right.
And all of these politicians who are getting, like Kamala Harris spent $2 billion on her election or her campaign and lost, obviously. That all came from, not all, most of it came from NGOs. That came from money that went out of the government through some NGO, some intermediaries back into her pocket. Right. It's just laundering money back and forth to the same people.
Well, it's the same thing. It's like these countless examples of, and the same thing happens here in Canada, of course, where you get these politicians that go into politics, and they've been in politics, let's say, for 10 years, and they make $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so in theory, over 10 years, they've made $2 million before tax.
Yeah. And
so
expenses.
even if they tax and any expense of life, but let's just say that somehow they were, they
pocketed it all.
They had a sugar mama who was paying for everything.
Yeah.
And so this dude goes into politics and he pockets his $1 million after tax.
Right.
But 10 years later, his net worth is $25 million.
Yeah.
Well, how the fuck did that happen, dude?
Exactly.
Right?
This is how it happens.
Yeah.
And we talked about this recently, that I fully expect, and I don't care if politicians or whatever you do in life, but let's say just politicians, if you have a platform where you are known to people as a politician, right? You're famous, you have influence. If you are gaining wealth from that.
Legitimately. Not from the taxpayers.
No. Exactly. Not from the taxpayers. But if you're gaining wealth because you're writing a book.
Sure.
And you're making millions of dollars because you wrote a book based on your experience. Sure. And you're making the money because you're popular. People know who you are, right? Fill your boots. That's great. People do it all the time, right?
Right.
Athletes do it.
Right.
If all of a sudden we're doing this discussion here and it gets 4 million views and someone wants to give us $1 million in your pocket, I'm not going to say no, right?
You won't know anything because I won't tell you.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll take the money.
That's true. Yeah. That's the kind of guy you are. Yeah, but I mean, that's, yeah. I don't know
the problem is not that I don't have a problem that these folks have a substantial net worth when it's all said and done.
Right. But they're getting it through the wrong ways.
It can't come from taxpayer money.
Yeah, taxpayer money, exactly. But going through, getting money back through NGOs, for example. Yeah. So it started with taxpayers' money, went to the government. The government then gave it to some other organization or group somewhere, and then it came back to these politicians. And they're not getting it for no reason. They're getting it to do something.
Yes.
Right. If you're
it's kickbacks and shit like that.
Yeah. If you're getting $1 million from Big Pharma, you're probably going to vote Big Pharma, right? Chances are that's how it's going to go. That's why with Doge in the States, it's easy to see who's getting all the money,
right?
Because those are the people who are freaking out. You get Elizabeth Warren screaming like a banshee, no pun intended. She's out there going nuts. She's going nuts, right?
Right.
Because she's getting caught.
Yeah, that's right.
She's getting caught. That's why she's worth $40 million or whatever she's worth on her $180,000 salary. She's been a politician her whole life. This is what happened. You're getting caught. Bernie Sanders, you're caught. You guys are being exposed for what happened, what you've been doing. That's why they're freaking out. This is the best game going because it's just the people who are most complicit in it are exposing themselves by screaming the most about it.
Yeah.
If you were smart, if you were one of these guys who has been, you're now worth $40 million after 5 years in politics, making a $180,000 salary, and you're getting that money from NGOs and things like that, you should shut the fuck up right now.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Because
man.
As soon as you open your mouth complaining about it, everyone knows that's because you're taking the money, bud.
Right. Yeah.
Just shut up. Don't say anything. They're not very smart, put it that way.
No, I don't think anyone's ever accused the political class of being the brightest among us.
No.
But the other thing I will say in their defense is I actually think I would like to see a world where the political class, the politicians, are well respected. Like if they go into a restaurant, they do get a good seat.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yep. I want them to be like if you run into the guy in public or the woman
you want
in
to
public,
take a selfie.
Yeah, exactly. Hey man, good to see you. Oh, really nice to meet you. I love what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Or whoever, premier so and so or counselor so and so, come back here. We got a good table for you. Whatever. Do that.
Exactly.
Yes, I want to see that. But you don't see that. That's not.
No,
that's not what's happening.
If Justin Trudeau or Carney or one of those guys were to come in and say, I want to sit down and hang out with you, I'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you.
No.
Well, I don't want to talk to you. First of all, I couldn't talk to Trudeau for more than 30 seconds anyway. No. The way he speaks, his character is such a cartoon.
Well, he's full of shit. He's full
of shit, but he presents like he's in a commercial all the time. We talk about this all the time, how people in commercials are so dramatic.
Yeah,
there's nothing authentic about him. He's from a commercial 100% of the time.
That's right.
You wouldn't be able to have a conversation without pulling your eyeballs out.
No.
It's crazy.
He wouldn't last. I often, if push comes to shove, I'll often evaluate what I think of particularly a man in particular. Mm-hmm. But same thing applies to women, but I look at them, if the shit hits the fan, it was like zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Where's this guy fit in the room if there's 100 of us in the room? Where's this guy fit? And Trudeau? He's not even in the room, man.
No, you're the first guy going and looking for supplies.
Exactly. He's like, if that happens and there's 50 grown men standing in the room and one of them is Justin Trudeau and it's the zombie apocalypse outside.
Yeah.
The 49 other guys are saying, listen, dude, by the way, nobody's listening to anything you have to say.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? So you just stand there.
There's no authority here.
Yeah, you just stand there. We'll figure this out and we'll let you know what your duty's going to be.
Right.
Right? The guy there's nothing about him that is leadership quality.
Nothing.
Zero. Because he has zero authenticity. Yeah. He's phony. He's just as phony as a $3 bill, man. There's nothing real with that guy.
100%.
Never has been.
He's an actor, is what he is.
Yes.
That's all he is.
He's an actor.
It's funny you say that, though. I'm watching this, binge watching Stargate Universe. It's from 2011, I think. It's old, right? You remember Stargate, the movie back in the day? They have the Stargate and it dials up and you go to different places.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sci-fi.
I don't think I watched it, but...
Anyway, it was on a list. I saw a YouTube list of like the 5 sci-fi shows you haven't seen that you should watch. Anyway, it was one of them.
Okay.
And it is really good. I really liked it. But they cut it short after 2 seasons. Anyway, bottom line is they have a group of people. Some of them are military, some politicians, some civilians, and they end up going, they get through this, end up on a ship somehow. Anyway, bottom line is they're stuck. It's no different than a zombie apocalypse. You're stuck with this group of people and you got to find leadership, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there's a divide between the military leadership and then the civilians, right? Civilians think they control the military. Military is like, we're the guys who should be leading this, obviously, right? But in that scenario, to your point, if that happened here and Trudeau was on the civilian side as leader, do you think anybody, not just the military, but the civilians, would be like, oh yeah, we should follow you? No. Are you kidding me?
No, not a chance.
No way.
First of all,
I'd follow the plumber down the street who
100%.
put in my bidet.
100%.
I would say, bud, I'm following you over that guy.
Yes.
Right? At least you do something.
That's right. It's just, yeah, that's what kind of baffles me when we, like in the world that we live in, I mean, that's one thing, again, whether or not you like Trump or don't like Trump, he is a leader.
Yeah.
Clearly. He didn't get where he is in the world by not being a leader. And he
even before he got into politics.
Yes. And again, I don't care if you agree with everything he's saying. And I don't like this 51st state rhetoric. Like I don't.
No, obviously.
I don't like that shit, but I know that that's how he operates. And I also know what he's doing there. Or I have my interpretation of what he's doing there is that's just how he operates. He knows what it is he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And he knows what he has to say to wind people up to get there.
Yeah.
And all the idiots in this country, the liberal political idiots, they're all falling for it, man. They're falling for every fucking thing he does. I'm like, and you can just see it. They just fall for everything. He's playing them they're doing exactly what he wants them to do.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Word for word.
We talked about this. Anybody who's watched Donald Trump ever in his life, way before politics, as a business person, as a celebrity, but especially as a president in politics, the way he negotiates is very simple. He's going to go to the extreme on every subject, like Canada being the 51st state, right? Or we're going to just take Gaza and we're going to build some hotels over there. Yeah. They'll go to this crazy extreme. Everyone loses their minds and freaks out while they're doing that, exposing themselves completely.
Yes.
Right? Like they're doing here in Canada, expose themselves completely. And then they come back and say, okay, well, look, that's unreasonable. We can't do that. But how about we meet somewhere in the middle? And you'll be like, okay, I'll tell you what, you take the win on that. I'll meet you in the middle. But the middle is 10 times further than he wanted to get to in the first place.
That's right.
He's already getting way further along than he meant to by going to the extreme and letting these guys talk themselves out of a deal.
That's right.
That's basically what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's letting Canada talk yourself out of a deal.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the other side of that coin with the 51st state nonsense is that he just doesn't like Trudeau.
Right? Well, he also doesn't like what's going on up here.
He doesn't like what's going on up here. And he's exposing that too. He's just showing people, look, I'm not dealing with the governor. He wouldn't disrespect, I mean, he would, I guess, but in general, you wouldn't disrespect another country's leader the way he does Trudeau. He's doing it on purpose, right? He's doing it on purpose because he has no respect for him.
That's right.
Obviously. Most people don't, right? But he's
most
calling it
people
out.
in this country don't.
Most people in the country don't. Other world leaders, you've seen him like with, what's her name, Meloni in Italy.
Yeah.
He's sitting talking to her and she's looking at him like, you fool.
Yeah.
Who do you think you're talking to?
Yeah.
Right? All the time.
I know.
I love that girl. She's no nonsense and she doesn't like Trudeau.
No. A bunch of them over there don't like Trudeau. I've seen like that I don't know what you would call it, like when the European countries get together, it's kind of like a House of Commons thing, but they're throwing things around, they stand up. And I've seen a few people, leaders, I guess, of other countries or representatives of other countries, just like they've called them out on the trucker thing and on the Emergencies Act thing. And they're just like, and they're not mincing words. They're like letting people know they've used words like communism and
100%.
dictator and authoritarian and all this shit, right? It's like, they're calling it out. And these are world leaders. These aren't just like,
these aren't media people.
No, it's the, it's like the guy out earlier this week, he's not the premier. He would be the opposition, the Conservative Party leader, who was the opposition in BC. He had sent out a post where he's calling out Mark Carney for what he is. But it was good to see that somebody, because premiers normally kind of he's not the premier, sorry, but he's the leader of the opposition. Leader of the Conservative Party. But normally they kind of stay out of it. They're like, they don't make any comment. But we're beyond that. With this dude, man, you can't just bite your tongue on this thing. This dude is like, you probably couldn't pick a worse person
No, he is
put in power.
He's Trudeau with brains.
That's right.
He's a smart version of Trudeau.
That's right. Exactly.
Trudeau is a puppet, obviously.
That's right.
He's obviously a puppet of the WF. Not very smart. He's an actor. He's doing his part, and he's going through doing his dance and what he's supposed to do to inflict
literally doing dancing
damage
sometimes.
he can do to
literally
our country.
Dancing.
Yeah, literally
dancing around with
and dressed up in whatever else outfit he wants to put on.
He's an actor.
He's an actor. That's exactly it. Carney is all of those ideals, which aren't even probably Trudeau's, because he's just, again, he's a puppet. He's following
He's just doing what
orders.
he's told.
Carney is the guy who believes this shit.
Right.
He's smart enough to know, and he's smart enough to do it.
That's right.
It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. He's very dangerous to come in. And he admits it. Like, again, he's not hiding it. He said he's a globalist elitist. He says this right up front.
Imagine you just say that. You think like...
And thinks it's going to get him the win. And it might, because, again, the media, the CBC, are on his side. They're pushing him for it. They're going to pull some shit, for sure. When this whole thing goes down, and whoever votes for the Liberal leadership...
There won't be, that was decided. I mean, I know people talk about that. That dude it was always his.
That's what I'm saying. But
remember they raised the entrance fee from $75,000 to $350,000 in the Liberal Party. So that eliminated a whole bunch of them right off the gate.
Yep. And they got rid of that one guy.
No one's even talking about the rest of them. Like,
no.
What's her dingle, the idiot stick there, the deputy prime minister? What's her name?
Oh, yeah. Freeland, yeah.
They don't even mention her anymore in the media.
No one's going to vote for her.
Oh, I know, but it's like, she was the deputy prime minister.
Yeah.
Something would tell you that, and she was the finance minister, even though she did a terrible job, so bad, in fact, that she had to quit.
She's still number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
Politically.
So you would think in a scenario where the prime minister resigns, the most logical person to take over in the party would be the deputy prime minister, who was the finance minister. Now, I'm not saying that she should, but you would think the party would rally behind her. But no, they just rally behind this guy that no one even knew who he was. I actually wrote an email to our local MP here, who is a Liberal.
Yeah.
He didn't respond. He didn't even respond back to me. I wrote him an email and I was like, I've actually met him before. He contacted me once about, like in person, knocked on the door of a place I had when I was here in Fall River, and he was looking for a place to rent for their campaign office or whatever, back in 2015. But anyways, I wrote this dude an email and I was like, I noticed that because of course he endorsed Mark Carney.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they've all done. And so I wrote him an email. I'm like, what is it about him that you're endorsing?
Yeah.
Right? And how long have you known this guy? So you mean to tell me the prime minister resigns of a party that's been in power for basically 10 years.
Yeah.
And the entire party essentially unanimously agrees that nobody within that party is worthy of being the prime minister.
Right.
It's an outsider, and he's not an outsider. We all know he was just behind the curtain pulling the strings the whole time.
But he's outside of Canada.
And he's outside of the party.
Politics.
He's outside of the politics, yes. Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that in and of itself should tell everyone in the country that party is not the party to be voting for. Because even the people in the party, your elected members of parliament and ministers and so on, all essentially unanimously agree that nobody in that party is worthy of being the prime minister.
Yeah, exactly.
That should be it, man. That should be all you need to know.
That should be.
So I think it's time maybe to consider another party. Don't you think maybe you should consider another party?
Yeah.
Then if they're telling you that,
you know what they're going to do with him? The card they're going to play with him. They're going to say they're going to play both sides. They're going to say countries like the U.S. went with a guy like Trump because he was an outsider. Because he was a businessman, successful billionaire businessman, just like Carney.
Oh yeah,
that's what we need. They're going to play that card, right? They're going to
who's that going to win though? I mean, they're not
smart enough to
there aren't
win.
any conservative voters that are going to the Liberal Party at this point. They're just trying to hang on to, and they're trying to get perhaps the NDP,
the NDP
people to vote Liberal instead.
Right?
I guess.
Yes. Well, they still hold a lot of power.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, I think the Bloc are generally pretty strong in Quebec though. When you look at the polls, I don't know. I mean, who knows? I think polls are horseshit anyway. I mean, how do you know you want to?
The polls now are saying that Carney's ahead. He's now he's got more approval rating than Poilievre does all of a sudden.
And you know what I think about the polls
poll
too?
Is that?
Yeah, you know the thing every time I see CTV, for instance, it'll say, "Oh, a new poll suggests that Mark Carney is, has closed the gap to 3%," or they'll say some horseshit.
Yeah,
and then it'll be a poll of 1,200 people, and I always think I've even said this before online. I'm like, CTV, why don't you guys do a poll right now? Right now, why don't you post a poll the same question that was asked,
Yeah.
you're going to get way more response than whatever this poll. You're going to get way more than 1,600 responses or 1,200 responses. You're going to get tens of thousands, if not
they do
more.
it on X.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So CTV, do the poll right now on X. Pose the question right now.
Right, but they won't do that.
No, of course they won't.
No,
Because they're going to have an
they'll do their own
enormous
poll.
sample size.
They'll do their own poll and they'll call the people who they have on dial to do polling. That's what they do, right? CBC or CTV, or whoever, it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, sure.
That's what they get. Like you can't trust a Fox poll or a CNN poll, right?
No.
Yet, because they're going to get their own people mostly. But if you put it on X, you're getting everybody.
That's right.
But that's why they don't do it,
Exactly.
right? Because then they're going to get the truth.
And then you'll see like some random person on X.
Yeah.
They'll be like, the poll suggests this.
Yes.
And some dude will respond to that and say, he'll do a poll, right? And he'll put Carney or Polyev or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like 95% Polyev.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
I mean, I've even seen Elon Musk do that, put polls up, right? And of course, he'll get like millions of responses.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll be like so far skewed that even if, and again, it's not like only right-wing nut jobs follow Elon Musk. He's
got just as many people who hate him.
Yes.
Again,
people follow him just to be able to.
That's the thing about X. It sounds like we work for X, but that's the thing about X is that everybody who's on there who any influence, like an Elon Musk or whoever, Donald Trump or anybody else is on there posting something, you put a poll out there.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not like if you go to your own people, like CBC would do that, because there's just as many people on there who hate these people who would vote in that poll against them just because they hate them as there are people who support them.
Sure.
Right? So it's not like Elon Musk, he owns the platform, so of course he's going to get the results he wants. Are you kidding me? There's as many people on there who hate that guy and vote against him on everything.
Of course.
Right?
It's no different than, I follow Justin Trudeau on Twitter. Of course, I follow him to see what kind of bullshit he's throwing out there, but I can't stand that guy.
No.
And part of me doesn't want to follow him because of that reason, but I also want to know what he's saying. But I can't stand him.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Oh, he's way up there with the people on this planet who I cannot stand, man.
He's at the top.
He's just screwed us so.
He'd be at the top. He'd be near the top of the list, even if he wasn't a politician. Like I say, just as a person, the way he acts and talks and presents himself.
If you met him,
you would never spend time with that guy.
Right? If he sat down at your table, you were sitting around at the pub having a drink or whatever, and he sits down, in like 30 seconds, you're going to be looking at your buddy like, who the fuck's this?
He's the guy when you go to a host party, right? There's 20 or 25 people at the host party, 10 guys and 13 girls. He's the one guy who comes in, hey guys, how you doing? And he starts talking to you and everyone's hanging out, getting to know each other. But within 10 minutes, he's out in the kitchen with the women. He spends a whole night with them while the guys are over here talking fucking hunting and hockey and whatever.
That's right.
Right? We're having this conversation. He's not part of that. He's over there talking to somebody else.
No.
Right?
And then on the drive home, your wife's like, who's that idiot with the polka dot socks that was trying to talk to us all night? Right? That's him, man.
That's him.
That's him in a nutshell. Anyway, it's concerned. Now you have all these other voices because of things like social media in general, but Twitter and YouTube and whatever. You have people having conversations like this, like regular people having conversations. And one of the things that works great about that, of course, is that you get these varying, like significantly wide demographic of people that are having conversations. And we might be having the same conversation, but we're having the conversation as two regular dudes that live in Halifax and have regular middle-class jobs and, families and whatever. And then there's other people who have similar demographics, but might approach it a little bit differently. But for whatever reason, well, no, I shouldn't say for whatever reason, it makes perfect sense that people will gravitate toward other certain people in certain conversations. So they'll,
of course. So
that's why it works. That's why you get somebody who's like myself, who might have a conversation or do these short clips that we throw on there where it's like, like I'm no political expert. I don't claim to be that. I have no desire to be that, like at all. I also have no desire to be like newscaster guy.
No, exactly.
That's not my thing, but it has, but when you put it together and you put some effort into it and you sit down and you write it, and it kind of comes across that way because it comes across, of course, that you've put some effort into this and you're, there's a presentation component to it.
Yeah.
But you have to play the game if you want to, the game being like, I equate it to when I first started in the real estate business, and it was like, when you want to grow your business or you want to get known out there, you got to put your face on your real estate card and put your face on this and run ads and put your name on, remember they used to have like what was it called? The guide, the TV guide used to come up on the TV.
TV guide.
It used to roll
I
up.
know what you mean. Yeah,
like
yeah.
Channel 13
I
or
forgot
whatever,
about that.
10 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But you could put ads on there. I remember
that's
doing
right.
that. That was
I
still
remember
happening when I went in
Yeah, I remember those.
like 2003 or whenever I started in the business. That was still a thing. Print media, like pictures and newspapers and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I always hated doing that. I always hated putting my picture on anything, my business cards, whatever. And that same part of me still hates being like, this part I don't. This part I like, just having a conversation, is because we just look like no different than if we were sitting in a fucking Jack Astor's and somebody was looking over at us talking. It's the same thing. We're acting the same way. We're having the same conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And with the same, I would say even, we're having this conversation with the same level of
intensity.
Yeah, and the same awareness of our surroundings.
Yeah.
So knowing that people can hear us.
Yeah.
But still, this is the environment, and so we're gonna say what we're gonna say, and we're not saying it to upset anybody, but
Yeah.
you know, if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Just watch TV or something. Don't pay attention. Stop listening to my conversation.
Yeah. I was thinking about that just yesterday. Same thing, because I'm in restaurants quite a bit. We go out quite a lot, and same thing. I don't enjoy being. I'm the same way. I don't look for attention. I'm pretty private about everything. That's why it's taken me 2 months to come here and sit with you.
Right.
So that's me anyway, right? But so I'm out in public. I'm pretty quiet when I'm speaking, but for the most part, I don't care if other people hear what I'm saying, because I believe in what I'm saying.
That's right.
Right. Now, if I'm out there just talking shit for laughs, that's a different subject, right? You got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
But if I'm having a conversation like we're having here about any of the topics we're having, I don't care who hears me. Actually, I hope people do.
Sure.
Because I hope some of those people who are hearing what I'm saying are the people who are only getting their news from single sources, who have never heard this view, right? Who've never heard what we're talking about, right? So that's important, I think. And same thing, if we're out and you hear other people talking and you hear some crazy nonsense you don't agree with, I still like to hear it, because I like to hear what people, where people are at.
Oh, man, I hear that shit all the time. You could be standing in line at like Tim Hortons or the other place that happens to me is now and then I'll be like standing at the rink, watching one of the boys play hockey or something, and the Trump stuff comes up a lot. People talk about Trump a lot, right?
Yeah, of course. He sucks a lot of space.
Man. And sometimes I'll hear people, and it's not nothing. I actually think most people are pretty logical, rational people, but every now and then you'll hear somebody say something. And actually, when we were in Moncton last month, there was like the team had a tournament up there. And so there was one point where we were sitting around the table, like the parents all kind of organized to go have a meal in one place, and the kids were sitting at another table, and we were chatting, and a kind of conversation came up about one of the guys there is a Halifax regional police officer.
Yeah.
And there was conversation about they were looking to buy this like armored vehicle thing for here locally. It's like $400.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
And I'm all for it, man.
Sure.
I'm all for spending money on police and making sure we have enough of it, more than enough even,
100%.
and making sure they have everything they need to do their job effectively and
100%.
keep them safe and so on, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a huge supporter of the police and policing, right?
Police, military.
Yes, and the military, same thing as well, same thing. Military, dude, I would like this country to be like on lockdown when it comes to the military.
Absolutely.
I'd like us to be... I'd like people to be saying, listen, we don't need that much military. I'd like even other people outside of the country being like, why do you guys have so much military?
Yeah.
I'd rather be there than where we are now.
Yeah. And I'd like our military to be a military.
Yes.
You're a war machine, basically. That's what you are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be peacekeeping and all that other stuff too, part of it. But your core role is war, essentially, right? In one way or another. Yeah. And you should be, we go down this path a lot because we have family in the military and friends in the military. And we have some differing views on it, not you, me, but our group. But it's crazy that our military, same thing in the States, right? Now that you get Pete Hegseth coming in as the new SecDef, and he's right away, he's like, that's it, no more of this nonsense, no more DEI, no more this and that. Like we're a war machine. Now he's a warrior. He came, he fought, right? So he's got that mentality. But that's the mentality it should be. Other countries in the world, that's what their militaries are.
Of course.
Right? They're not worrying about whatever, DEI quotas in Iraq, right? Or whatever. Iran's not worried about it. China's not worried about it, right? And those are the people we got to worry about. It doesn't matter if Finland is doing that, because we're not going to war with Finland ever.
No.
Hopefully not, but but yes, we should be spending, our budget should be the biggest expenditure in our budget by far is the military.
Yeah.
By far.
Yes.
Right. And the fact that we pay whatever it is, 1% now, and Trump is asking for 5. I think he asked for 3 the first time around, whatever it was, and we never moved. Right. We should be.
Well,
and even if that just means, look, even if you don't care about the military as a war machine, like I'm painting it, it's still a federal job. If you were to spend the money and double the number of people in the military, you just created hundreds and thousands of jobs.
Right.
Or however many it works out to be. Right. That's great. And then you created these jobs. You've given these people a skill set that's applicable in all different situations, right? If they come out of the military, and if you go in, like our kids are of the age where they're going out and finding, or going to schools, or going to find careers, and they're all going their own ways.
Right.
But I've said this from the beginning that, even you and I, when we were younger at that age ourselves, we looked at military.
Right.
And I would encourage any of my kids to go in the military.
Sure.
I don't care if you ultimately want to be something else. If you ultimately want to be a teacher, you ultimately want to be a business person, or whatever it is, go in the military first. Put 20 years in, right?
Sure.
Get a full pension.
Yeah.
And then at 42, 43 years old, you can retire with your full pension. You have an incredible resume of experience and skills that now you can apply. Even if you were, I don't know, some kind of military occupation that's not really applicable to the real world, still the underlying skill set that you've learned on how to accomplish things, you can apply that to the real world, right?
Yeah, and that's a real thing from a business owner's perspective.
Yes.
When I see a resume come in for some guy looking for, it could be, carpentry work, could be salesman, project manager stuff.
Yeah.
If I see somebody who was a member of the military for a period of time, especially if they were there for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I've had guys that have worked for me who were retired from the military.
They go to the
They
top
are
of the
like
list.
the very top of the list, man.
100%.
Way at the top.
Yeah.
Like, I would that's probably almost enough for me in many cases.
Yeah. I'm sure.
To at least to have them in and have a conversation about what the job is, make sure they have the skill set to do it.
You don't have to come in all PTSD and freak out on you, but
yeah. But from a person perspective, from a personality and from a character perspective, they're 90% of the way home. I just got to meet with them and make sure, that they are what they look like on paper. But
exactly.
Military experience, or somebody was in the police force of some kind. And so back to what I said, when we were sitting around this conversation, the topic of this truck that they want to buy, armored vehicle they want to buy in Halifax. And of course you get a bunch of people, we don't be spending money on that. There's other things we spend money on. We need more bike lanes or whatever it was. Right? Yeah. I'm like, listen, man. So then the conversation got a little bit political. And initially there was 2 guys and they were kind of like 2 guys talking, and they were, somehow that conversation turned into a Trump thing. Or whatever. But anyway, by the time it came back around after 10 minutes, you realize we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
We're none of us are actually none of us actually oppose more crime prevention, right? We all want that.
No, exactly.
Like if I ran for mayor of Halifax, at the very top of the list, I would say my goal, if I'm elected mayor, I want Halifax to be the safest city in the country, the lowest crime in the country. And the only way that's going to happen is we have to acknowledge the facts of the matter. We have to beef up the police force, and we have to charge and prosecute criminals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It would be like, the message will be, if you're a criminal or somebody who
aspiring to be a criminal,
is aspiring to be a criminal, don't move to Halifax.
Yeah, don't
because
come
your
here.
ass is grass. When you get caught here, you go into prison.
Which is exactly what's going on the southern border in the States.
Right.
Now that Trump's come in, there's nobody trying to come across.
Right.
And there's even videos of people who came across putting videos out on YouTube saying, don't try this. Don't come here right now.
Right.
Because not only are they going to catch you and get rid of you, you are then banned for life to ever come into the country. Right.
So it should be.
So don't do it.
Sure.
But they didn't actually do anything to accomplish that. Right. They didn't go from massive immigration. We'll call it immigration. Massive immigration to
Migration.
zero.
Yep.
Right. Because they put 10,000 soldiers on the border. They just did it because Trump came in office and said, okay, Holman, you're now in charge of this. And you get to see this guy on TV and you're like, geez, I'm not fucking with that guy.
Exactly.
Right? And everyone else
And
is like, okay,
he's
we're not
going to do what he says too.
Damn right.
Yeah.
And that's it. All it was you had to say you're going to do it.
That's right.
And that was it.
That's right.
So same idea. If you're,
The same
you
idea.
still you have to enforce it, of course, here, especially locally. But yeah, if you were to put that out there and present Halifax as that, we are going to be the safest city. You fuck around here, you're going to jail. Right? That's
I would run. My thing would be, we will be the safest city. It will be the place, if you want to raise a family, you're like, dude, we got to go live in Halifax.
Yeah.
Because you can walk around the streets. There's no crime.
Yep.
I'd have beat cops. I'd have cops walking around the streets. Keeping an eye on shit.
Yeah, what happened to that?
I don't know.
That used to be a thing.
I haven't seen much of that when we were, like when I was pulling rickshaw in 2000, whatever that was, 2000 somewhere around there. Yeah, there was cops walking the beat, man, walking 2x2s, walking around.
You don't see that very often.
No. And now, ironically,
even if they were walking around, they wouldn't be able to approach certain groups of people.
That's right.
Without getting in trouble.
That's right.
Right? Regardless of what's going on.
Right. Yeah, no, I'd be running on an entirely different platform than you hear people talking about. People always talk about these like fluffy things. You know, you vote for me, I'm going to...
It's all nonsense. Nonsense.
It's foolishness, man.
Yeah.
You're at the very top of the list of any jurisdiction, any level of government, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal. We don't have provincial law enforcement in this country. So it's like city enforcement or federal, right? Like RCMP. Although I think there should be provincial.
Troopers,
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, whatever that is, the safety and security of your citizens should be the absolute tippy top, very top of the list of what your government is responsible to do.
Yes.
Above all else, your job is to protect whatever your jurisdiction is and the people that live within it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not a place where you cut spending. That's not a place where you make decisions based on the fact that you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We live in a country where we don't want to offend criminals.
Yeah. I know. That's crazy.
And people argue on behalf of the criminals. Like people argue that we shouldn't offend criminals.
There are people, I don't have a good example in front of me, but there are people in this country who have been charged, who were the criminal, who were the victim.
Yep.
Right? But they were charged and punished because they badmouthed the criminal. Right?
Yeah,
they posted online, this person did this, whatever it might be. Right? They get in trouble.
Well, we saw, you could easily look this up quickly. Maybe Brendan will throw in some B-roll for this when I talk about this, but there's been a number of examples where city police or RCMP perhaps have put out a message to people locally. If someone steals your car or they steal some shit off your porch, don't take pictures of them and don't out them.
Yeah.
Don't tell on them. Just let it go, man. Just let it go.
Yeah, screw that.
Yeah, but that's what they do. That's the message. There was one point, I think there was one of the law enforcement agencies, whatever level of law enforcement, suggested that people I think it was like in the Toronto area, that you just leave your keys outside.
Yeah.
Or leave them by the door.
Leave them by the door. No, you can leave them inside the door because they're going to break in anyway.
Sure, okay, that's what
But then they can grab your keys.
Just make it handy. So when they get in, they can just get the keys and get out of there.
Imagine that's what they're being told. That's what the police tells you to do.
Dude. It's
not just the police either.
I actually feel, to be honest with you, I don't think it's the police at all. I mean, there definitely would be those within the police force, but it's not these guys that I'm running into playing golf with several times throughout the summer, like regular guys that I have conversations with. It's not those guys.
No.
Those guys fucking know better. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Those guys
the policies that are put in place you have to follow. But my point I was going to be there is that it's not just policing that has to be that way. Government as a whole has to be that way. So let's take federal government, for example. Your role, and it's gone the opposite now, but your role should be first to do everything that's best for your citizens first.
Right.
Your citizens come first, no matter what.
That's right.
Right? Whether it's policing, military protection, taxes, whatever it is.
That's right.
You take care of your citizens and then you take care of everybody else. And by everybody else, I mean people who are in your country who aren't your citizens and people outside. So if you're giving foreign aid, for example, which is rich countries like us should be doing that. But you shouldn't be doing it if you're running a deficit.
No.
If you're running a deficit, you don't send your money someplace else. Why am my tax dollars paying for something over here when we're losing money over here? So,
and when you're increasing our taxes, our taxes keep going up and you keep giving away more money.
You keep giving away more money.
Right.
Exactly. If I'm paying these taxes and you're running without a deficit and you have extra money, well, first of all, you should take that extra money and do something for us, the citizens.
Sure.
Right? But let's just call it 50-50. Say you take half of the money that you didn't spend and you give it back to the citizens in one form or another. And then 50% of it you send to someplace else. I can sign off on that. Sure, no problem. But yeah, we should help other people. We're privileged to live in this part of the world. We should help other countries. No question. But
but not
I'm
to
not
our
paying
own
money
detriment.
to lose our country to lose money, to be indebted to other countries that we're borrowing the money from.
That's right.
To help another country out for whatever, some stupid program that nobody cares about.
That's right. And not only that, if we get to a point where, and I'm probably further down the spectrum than you are, perhaps, on, because for me it would be, we can't be running a deficit and do that. We also can't be paying 50% income tax and doing that.
No.
Right? All you have to do is look down south of the border. They have states down like Florida and whatever others. There's no income tax.
Yeah.
Right? They have like, 7% sales tax or something, but you pay no federal income tax. And especially since we live in a country that is, everybody knows, is resource rich.
Yes.
Like we should actually be one of, if not the richest country in the world. And so I don't have enough empirical data to say one way or another, but enough people have said on both sides of the debate have acknowledged that we should be and would be one of the richest countries in the world if we used our natural resources to the best of our abilities. Yeah. And in doing so, we would pull other countries out of poverty because we could help them.
We'd
but you have to help yourself first. It's like put your own mask on before you put the mask on next door, right?
Yeah.
You have to do that part. But in this country, we're just running around putting everybody's mask on for them and while we suffocate.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's also, it doesn't make sense because it's on the surface. It makes perfect sense when you realize that it is this way because of corruption and criminal activity and foreign influence and all those things that make for these illogical, irrational decisions that we make. And then we're told, oh, that you should just, for whatever reason, just go along with it. It's the right thing to do.
It's easier to just go along with it than to complain about it anyway, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people fall into that camp, right? Where it's just easier to shut up and follow along.
Yeah, well, most people won't. The average person, I think, won't take action on it until it hits them in the face. So they won't action on it until they lose their job or someone breaks into their house or something happens to a family member, friend of theirs, or they themselves can't get the surgery they need because our healthcare system is a disaster.
Right.
Or their children come home from school upset about whatever gong show is going on in the public school system that shouldn't be.
Crazy.
Whatever it is. So for most people, and I understand, I get it, I understand why, but for most people, they're not going to action anything until they're forced to.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And I think where we are now is like, we're at a point in this country where the first step of the action, I guess, that you see is these conversations that people are having. So you get the certain group that kind of at the forefront of the conversation. So that would be like the Jordan Petersons of the world when it comes to Canada.
Right.
The first few people who stood up, and it helps that he's incredibly smart guy. And, you know, I mean, not just anybody could do it that way, but so you're going to have your first round of people that are going to, the academics and the intellects and the experts of whatever it is, who are going to stand up and say, get the conversation going. And then you get down to like the next tier of people, us regular folk, who might bring a different perspective from like a home builder's perspective or a nurse or a school teacher. Bad example, none of the school teachers are speaking up.
Right.
Whatever it is, right? A plumber or somebody who owns their own cafe, whatever it is. Somebody's going to, we're into that stage now where you see, because of things like YouTube and whatever, it's easier to do.
You can have a voice.
Buy a ring light, turn your iPhone on, start ranting into the screen, see what happens. And not everybody, of course, YouTube channels are probably not, this type of conversation is not the most popular thing because it opens up, you're opening yourself up to
attack.
Yeah, exactly. Because not everybody agrees with that. I mean, if you have a YouTube channel about how to make YouTube channels, well, nobody's probably going to attack you on that, right? Or if you have a YouTube channel about how to, baking or cooking or
but we come on here whatever, and call Trudeau names, we're going to have
of course
percentage of the country coming
I've
after
already
you.
seen. I mean, you see it. I mean, you can see it on Twitter. Just take that same thing when you get into this format.
Yeah.
And you're going to get people that are going to go down in the comments and be like, "This guy's an idiot."
It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense why people don't do it, or when people don't talk up at all, even just in public.
Of course, it makes sense. I totally
you see
get
people
it.
like Jordan Peterson or Gadsad or the people like that. They paid a price to voice their opinion.
Yes.
Right. Peterson lost his license in Toronto.
Yep.
Right. To teach or to practice He moved to the States
Yep.
because he basically was run out of Canada
That's right.
for having an opinion that was contrary to the machine.
That's right.
Right. And he's a unicorn in how he came up from obscurity to massive popularity
Yes.
and then everything else. But the fact that you could go after him at the height of his popularity and run him out of the country, what does that make people like me or you or even me and you wouldn't be as bad, but what about someone who...
A politician, perhaps.
A politician or someone
An existing politician.
Or if it was, I don't know, another example, but someone who can really be hurt.
Sure.
Badly. You know what I mean? You got to be very careful not to say the things you wouldn't. There's probably lots of people who agree 100% with what Jordan Peterson was saying the whole time.
Well, you could use
censorship and whatnot.
You could use school teachers, or you could use a doctor or a nurse or somebody or a military. Military people aren't allowed to say anything.
Yeah, they're not allowed to say anything.
They're not allowed to say anything.
We hear that all the
politics.
time from our people.
That's right. They're literally not allowed to.
I'm not allowed to have an opinion on this.
That's right.
But off the record, here's what I think.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you're not allowed to have an opinion on it?
You're not allowed to have an opinion, but if the shit hits the fan, you guys are going to be the first ones boarding the trucks and planes and ships
exactly.
and everything.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I agree. It's not your, but I think we're at a point where when you look at conversations now being had, and people bringing things forward like Sam Cooper, the journalist, we sent that clip around yesterday. You and I would share with those guys. I mean, this dude, man, like I have a lot of respect for people like that who, I mean, he has spent like 15 years diving into this thing. And, he's taking some risk there, man. Like he's exposing this level of corruption and criminal activity and foreign interference.
He's taking a big risk.
He's taking a risk, man. Yeah, that guy should almost have security detail. Maybe he does.
He probably does.
But what's amazing to me is I in the last 2 weeks, I've seen this guy on several different podcasts and several different clips, and guy has wrote a book, right? And crickets on the mainstream media. No one's ever going to bring him. And to me,
I only know it because you sent a video.
Yes,
I didn't even pick up on it from X.
Yes, exactly. Probably part of that's probably because he's Canadian, and Canadian stuff doesn't get a lot of nearly as much attention. But he's a guy that I'd love to see him land on Rogan's show.
Yeah, for sure.
So that he could get the exit, because he knows so much shit, man. This guy knows so much stuff about what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? And anyway, I think you just have, when you listen to him talk and he kind of lays it out there and you're like, it's kind of it can be a bit overwhelming because you're like, holy fuck, how are we ever getting out of this?
Yeah.
I don't, like, even if we put a lot of faith in the Conservatives getting voted in, and then hopefully that'll right the ship and get us going in the right direction. It's certainly it's not like it's going to fix everything, but maybe we can at least get it going in the right direction. But saying that, I haven't heard Poilievre or anyone on the Conservative side mention Sam Cooper's name or any of this stuff that he's talking about.
Yeah.
But then I think, okay, well, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe right now they're just focused on, they don't want to cloud the issue, so they need to get the election first, make the election happen, get elected, and then when they get in, push it a little further in that direction and start talking about foreign influence and fentanyl labs and all this shit that's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think they'll do that.
Well, the problem with that, I think, is we're assuming they're the good guys. We're
That's what I mean.
assuming that they're going to do the things that we think they're going to do. But they might come in and they might be 50% in the same category as the other guys, right? They might come in and be just as bad.
And it's not only at the federal level. That's the thing, right? It's not. It doesn't just exist federally. And that's really ultimately what it comes down to. Like you and I said before we turned the camera on. We're not living in a world of, here in the Western society, this goes for Europe as well, but they're like 10 years ahead of us, so they're just in worse shape than we are, right? And the U.S. was heading that direction, but now looks like maybe they'll at least get it going in the right direction. But it's not about liberals versus conservatives, Democrats versus Republicans, left versus right. It's good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's true, yeah.
And there are only a handful of bad guys. It's not like, I'm not suggesting that everyone on the left is the bad guys. No, I'm not saying that at all. That's not even remotely close to being true.
They're on both sides equally.
They're on both sides.
Yeah.
But there's only one side, and again, I don't really like divide it by sides, but there's only one side that's even acknowledging that the bad guys exist.
Yeah.
And the rest of them are like pointing to the people who want to expose the bad guys. They're calling them the bad guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the bad guys have told them that these are the bad guys.
Yeah.
And they fall for it with no with no evidence, with no rationale, with no logic.
Yeah.
They just go with it.
Well, that's similar to what we were talking about this morning, where I forget who it was, Greg Gutfeld, who I sent you that post. And I'm going to summarize it because I don't remember exactly what he said, but basically the media will create a narrative. They'll create anxiety about something. Right. They'll create outrage about something.
Right.
Not the topic itself. They'll create an outrage. And then they'll debate and argue about the outrage and who's outraged.
Right.
The whole debate becomes about that, not about the issue itself.
That's right.
Right. And that's been going on for quite a long time. But that happens with everything, right? Like that's what's happening right now. Everyone is people who are very vocal in the States about Doge and things like that, they're attacking Musk and Trump, and they're attacking the periphery things to be outraged about. They're not focusing at all about the actual issues, the actual items. So if someone like you're talking about there, Cooper, he's focusing on the actual issues.
Right.
That's very dangerous for everybody else, right? Who wants to cover that over. So yeah, he's in a dangerous spot. You take a big risk. Even, what's his name there? Rusty Rockets.
The guy from the
Russell
British
Brand. Russell Brand.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing. He was hardcore hardcore left-wing guy,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
For the longest time. Then he
Yeah.
started coming out with his podcast and he started saying some stuff. And all of a sudden he was starting to lean the other direction. And it didn't take very long. All of a sudden he got 1 million followers. All of a sudden he's got a big voice and he's saying things that this happened at the same time Jordan Peterson was coming out. So he's starting to repeat some of his stuff, right?
That's right.
But then all of a sudden the machine said, whoa, we can't have this. The machine, the British government sued him or charged him, tried to go after him and put him in prison for whatever nonsense. Most people would back down at that point.
Right.
So someone like he didn't, Peterson didn't, and he got run out of the country. Cooper doesn't seem to be backing down, but most people would.
Yeah.
Right. Most people would back down. Most people would say, you know what, this is not really worth it.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate reality, is that it appears that the people who have the most to lose are the ones who are going to speak up.
Yeah.
Because they have more to lose. If you have nothing to lose and you're just in this until you kick the bucket, you're in it, you're alone, you're solo in this world.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose. Then you're kind of like you said earlier, just like, just go with the flow. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. And hopefully somebody will do something that somehow affects you positively and lowers your taxes or,
Yeah,
well,
right.
that's not okay. No one's lowering taxes, but it seems like, ironically, it is the people with the most to lose who step into the light and have these conversations and start putting it out there. When really it's the people without as much to lose that would give it more power, because that's where the numbers are.
Right.
And then they can, so you get to a scenario where, like I've heard people mention this, and I agree that this is probably what it's going to require, but it's hard to get your head around, but it's probably going, if it were to be fixed, it's going to require like this grassroots revolution.
Yeah. That's where we're at now.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And the revolution starts with conversation. And then if the conversation fails, it gets ugly.
Yeah.
So right now we're at the conversation stage of this revolution.
Yes.
And more people are saying the same shit. And more people who wouldn't necessarily bump into each other in everyday life. And they're saying it different ways, but we're agreeing. It's like, even at the end of that thing we sent yesterday with Cooper and the other podcast, whatever the guy's name was, at the end they both said that. Sam Cooper made some kind of comment about people are going to have to be willing to say something and be labeled a racist, or we're never going to get out of this. And then the other guy had said something like, and it's going to require people taking action on a local level, run for a local councilor, or you're going to have to get involved, because it's not going to happen if we just let the councilors that want to get rid of X.
Yeah.
Like this city's a perfect example. This is only going to go that direction for 4 more years.
Exactly.
And then it'll just probably depend on how bad it gets in the next 4 years as to whether or not construction workers and builders and plumbers and fishermen and nurses and whoever step up and say, okay, fuck that. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Vote for me. I'll fix the crime. Or, I won't single-handedly do it, but this is what we represent. But it's not going to be done at an individual level. People are going to have to get organized.
Yeah, and I think social media in general, we talk about how the downside of it, and we have some people in our group who are very anti-social media for good reasons. But the good part of it is that anybody can get on there and have a voice.
Right.
And you can have an impact. So for things like Coors Light, when they end up going down the wrong path and misreading their customer base completely, right? They suffered for it. They suffered the consequences for that because it wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have suffered the consequences if it had happened 20 years ago before the internet, before social media. If they pulled that stunt, it would have went away. Nothing would have happened. Like some people would get pissed off about it or whatever, but nothing would have really come of it.
That's right.
But because there was millions of people on social media complaining about it and pointing out the nonsense of it, the nonsense of it being, this is not your demographic. This is not who you're going after. Why? Right. What are you doing here? Right. This is a bad business move. Just a bad business move. People were able to voice that and get it out there, and then everyone reads it and reposts it and everything else. And all of a sudden, it's a movement, right? And it's the same thing with the media, where X is now the number one news source in the world, right? And now every country pretty much.
Yeah.
That is great because now anybody can post something and get some feedback on it or give your opinion at the very least, right? Sure. Even if you're not coming with a new story, like we're not breaking news here. But if we're talking about something that is going on in the news, like Halifax trying to ban X for the government, that's important to get that out there so people understand it. Because most people I wouldn't have known that if you didn't send it to me.
Right.
Because again, I don't read local news.
And that's you and I. We talk every day.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have known that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you're somebody that pays way more attention to what's going on around you than the average person.
Yeah, exactly.
But even still, you wouldn't have known that.
No, I wouldn't have known that. Right.
Just think of how much stuff goes on that people don't realize is going on. And so, so we're at that point where I think that is ultimately what it's going to require. And that's that's almost exhausting to think about. And you think about in order to get on the other side of this, to actually correct this, because we're moving in a certain direction, and you're ignorant if you think that just because we're Canadians, we're going to avoid the ultimate outcome. We know where this is going. Mm-hmm. We know what this looks like in how many years. And maybe it's not, maybe we're gone by the time it happens, but probably not. Hopefully not. But in order to prevent that from happening and get it turned around and get it, and a lot of times what we're talking about is just going back to how things used to be. It's not like we're talking about some crazy concept.
But it used to be 10 years ago, not 100 years ago. I know, that's what I mean. I know that we're not talking about going back to the 50s. Yeah, exactly.
But there's a number of things. Can we go back to 2005 at least? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you put that in front of people and you explain it to them and you told them where you stand, then again, I agree that I believe wholeheartedly that the vast majority of people agree on these fundamental principles.
Yeah.
If you could just pull away the rest of it. So it's going to require this. I think it's going to take an organization. People are going to have to get organized. And naturally within that organization, natural leaders are going to rise from it. But I don't think, maybe it materializes into a political party. You're not just going to move in and take over. I don't mean take over is not the right term. You're not just going to move in and become this party that represents the country at the federal level. That's not happening.
No.
But you could definitely have proper representation at your city council.
Yeah.
You could at least get your city under control and get away from these things, like these nonsense things like getting rid of X because it offends people.
Yeah.
But that natural or that organic kind of grassroots movement is going to mean that you got to do a few things. You got to get organized. You have to communicate with people to let them know what you're trying to do, which is essentially what we're doing now, these kind of conversations. Then you're going to need certain people who are willing to step forward and take the risk, You're taking a risk. You're taking some risk. You're going to put yourself out there. You're going to have to put some stuff on the line. You're going to have to be willing to be called a racist.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be willing to be called a bigot. You're going to have to be willing to take that. And in a lot of cases, the answer to that's going to be, don't even address it. It's such a nonsensical thing to say. Just ignore those people. You don't have to have that argument. We're talking about crime prevention.
Yep.
I don't care if you think it's racist to prevent crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Too bad.
Right?
Exactly.
You will definitely change your opinion about that when somebody kicks your front door in and you forgot to leave the keys up by the doormat and now they're coming down to the primary bedroom to find them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you won't care too much about anyone getting offended at that point. 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 guys in a ski mask. You're not going to be concerned about offending anybody. You're going to be looking for the police.
Yeah.
Right? I got my first, what do you call it? Like your account's been
frozen for a week.
Frozen for
bad.
But no, they gave me the option. They said, but if you take it back.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's what it was.
Take it back right now.
Yeah, you take that back right now. You can keep going. Seriously.
That is what they do.
And I was like, what did I say? And you know what it was? I made a comment. The Liberal Party of Canada had put some some clip of Polyev saying something, and they were like giving it to him about whatever, right? And I said, I can't wait to see you guys get the beating you deserve.
Oh yeah, you get blocked for that.
Really?
Oh yeah. I almost exactly the same thing. There was a commentator on the news. I won't say exactly what it was. Commentator on a news show said something, right? I replied to it on X, quoting that person what they said, right, as a joke, saying that's pretty funny, ha. And in quotes, I said what they said, and I got banned, saying you're promoting violence or some shit like that.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? It was a joke. I said you used his exact words. I'm not telling him to punch himself in the face.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we'll wrap it up on this. We're going to need people to, as much as possible, to speak up, because there will come a time, especially if the Liberals are successful in. I personally think the Liberals would have to hijack the election to win it. I think they'd have to do some shenanigans shit.
They're going to,
and they're definitely going to try.
That's guaranteed. They're already doing it.
That's right.
They're already doing it.
They're already alluding to whatever. Who's that other one of them that's running for? I don't know any of these. I think her last name's Gould.
Yeah.
She already came out and said she's already quoted as saying, we might something to the effect of putting the election off. How it might.
Yeah, she said. Yeah, Trump's tariffs might be reason to push off the not have an election.
Exactly.
We said that from the very beginning.
That's right.
We said it right away.
There's always the play.
They're going to do that. And as soon as Carney said something about using emergency powers, you know what he's talking about. He means we're not going to have an election.
That's right. That's what they're going to do.
And then he's going to push through whatever nonsense Trudeau tried to do and couldn't get away with.
That's right. Because time is a friend to those guys, because it gives them time to manipulate, to spread more false, fake news, media bullshit, to spend more money, to manipulate things in their favor.
Set the board so they can win the game.
Yes, the time is in their favor, and time is our enemy when it comes to getting an election and trying to get things turned around.
Yes.
But if the Liberals win the election, whenever that takes place, then no question they're going to go after free speech and even shit like this.
Yes.
As quickly as possible, they're going to try to shut it down.
Yeah. 100%.
Just like over in Germany, how it's illegal now to insult someone.
Yes.
That includes social media, memes. That includes if you repost a meme.
That's crazy.
And somebody finds it insulting, it's actually a crime.
Yeah.
They'll do the same thing here, man.
Did you see that 60 Minutes episode or part of it?
Yeah.
That was nuts.
Yeah. I know, it was nuts.
Right?
We'll find that clip. We'll put that up here because people won't believe what I'm saying here.
It's crazy. That clip is crazy. I don't know what the person's name is, the person asking the questions from 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
60 Minutes is a joke, by the way. I mean,
oh, yeah.
They've gone so far from being a reputable show to being complete propaganda in the last several years. Yeah, it's crazy, unbelievable how bad they've gone. But the fact that they went through and these German people who were there were admitting all of that, saying that, it's illegal to have an opinion we don't like. It's illegal to repost something that's
illegal
negative.
to insult people.
It's illegal to insult people.
Yes.
But after the 60 Minutes show, people on CBS discussing it were basically in favor of that, saying that that's pretty good. We should be able to have some more of that control over here.
Yeah, you know what else is interesting? Is it won't go the other way. Like if I say I'm insulted by CNN or CBC.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't count.
Saying whatever, that won't count.
No.
It won't matter if I'm insulted or you're insulted.
No.
Anyways, if the Liberals win the election, it's gonna be a problem. And I think they'll go after even more so. They already attacked free speech in this country. It's already Bill C-63 and these different things that they've done. And they will push for more of that. And once you get to the point that you can control what people say completely, whereby even the stuff we said here today would definitely insult some people. Obviously. Or they could claim it does at least.
Yeah.
And that's all they have to do. They just have to claim that they are insulted. And thereby we are criminals.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, it's like the other 60 Minutes, I think it was 60 Minutes as well, where they had the two people who were allegedly fired from USAID, right? They interviewed these two people and they're sob story and how they were unjustly let go and this shit and that shit, all kinds of nonsense, right? Turns out the woman that was interviewed, the guy and the girl, the woman, she's like the head speech writer for the president of USAID or something. She wasn't a random person. No. And they knew that obviously going into it, but they presented it out there like that, right? That's just crazy.
Well, we'll wrap it up after this, but even before we get to what could happen, here in this province, I had one of the earlier episodes I did, like in the first, I don't know, maybe in the first 10 episodes I did, I had a guy in here.
You did 10 episodes already?
No, we've done like 20. Really? We might be in 22 or something at this point. Yeah, man. Yes, I know. Again, to anybody out there listening,
I should know that.
To anybody listening, if you start a YouTube channel your family and friends are not the people who are going to
Not to be relied on.
No, absolutely not, man. It's again, I told you before we started, but no different than when I started in the real estate business many years ago. The exercise was list all the names of your family and friends and everyone that you know, and now throw that away. Those are not the people that you're going to go find your business from. It's the same thing here. I don't even send you guys links to my podcast or any of these clips that I do. It's someday. Well, over the weekend, one of the HRM thing, the algorithm found its way to put it in your feed.
X gave it to me.
Yeah, X gave it to me. I didn't.
Yeah.
I never send you guys anything. I don't care about you idiots. I'm not trying to convince
That'll
you.
That'll get us on here.
Yeah. But anyways, what I was saying was there was a guy that had on the show somewhere around the 9th or 10th episode who worked for the provincial government here in this province for like 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, like I sat here and had a conversation. I didn't know him other than, that's where I found him. That's where I became aware of him, was on X.
Yeah.
I saw him posting a lot on X, and I could see him trying to like get a message across.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I brought him in. We had the conversation about it. He got fired from his job working for the government because he posted a Trump meme.
Yeah, I bet.
Right?
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And this guy, when you talk to him, if not that you'll listen to the episode, but this is a guy, he's one of the good guys, man. You can tell talking to him, he's like legitimately common sense, rational thinking. You can also see what he posts and his comments. And like, I wouldn't have invited him on if I thought he was a nut.
Yeah, right.
And he gets on here and he tells his story. I'm like, man, I can't fucking believe that. But that's right here in this province. So it's not like this stuff only happens in Washington or Ottawa. It's already here. It happens everywhere. It's already here. And it's already getting worse here with things like city council trying to do away with X, trying to do away with one of, if not arguably the most effective communication tool for news that we have.
Exactly. In the world.
In the world. Certainly in the Western world.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have their own version in other places. But anyway.
Blue sky.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, this is good. We'll do it again. Anything else that you want to, anyone else you want to piss off before we, any other words you'd like to say?
Save that for next time.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, man. Thanks.
All right, good.
Peace out.
Thanks for having me on.
See ya.